This is Professional Launch with Ricot Aladin, positively connecting the less connected, bridging gaps, and building futures in the community. Professional Launch with Ricot Aladin.
Hello, professionals. My name is Ricot Aladin, and I'm the founder of Professional Launch and the host of the Professional Launch Show on WDNY. Today's show, we have the CEO of Grafstrom Construction here to talk about his leadership and how did he start this company. But before we start the conversation, I have something to ask you. If you are a professional in the region who think you can volunteer for an hour or 3 hours to an hour to 3 hours for the fall, we are recruiting mentors to test our mentoring platform. So go on to professionallaunch.org and click on the platform button and sign up. You don't have to put your availability right now, but in the fall, when we start making this available to students to test this platform, we want your support. So thank you so much. Now on to the conversation. Mr. Grafstrom, thank you for being on the show today.
No, thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, well, grew up in Roseville, Minnesota, moved down to Fargo to go to school. Currently have a team of carpenters. Commercial finish carpentry is our main focus. And
can you move the mic a little closer to you?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's good.
It's good?
Yes.
Yeah, working on office buildings, industrial, restaurants, things of that nature.
Okay. So, tell me a little bit about how did you get to start the construction company that you own?
Well, there wasn't a lot of intentional planning, I guess. So
Okay.
I was down here going to school. In that time, was working for my uncle as a means to show income. I was got insurance and a contractor's license to be paid as a 1099.
Okay.
So then once I got both of those, then it was, I have a business, you should go try to find some work, and then you get some work, and then, wow, we need people for the work, so you get some people, and then, well, now we need more work, and the work and the staff just has continually gotten larger.
Mm-hmm.
So then every year, facing the new challenges and figuring out, okay, what do I do now that I'm wearing this set of shoes, basically. So it's just kind of one thing led to another, so I didn't ever sit and have a large, master plan or big target. It was, kind of started as a thing to do to earn income. And after a handful of years of that, I was like, I think I could do this for a while. I enjoy this.
So you didn't intentionally start the business kind of take on as you start working with your uncle. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You start getting projects, and then you get a little bit out over your skis, and okay, now what do we got to do now that we're in this particular box, and make a habit to read and continually pursue education, whatever that looks like, to make sure that stay kind of ready for the tasks at hand.
Okay. So, how do you go about finding customers and clients and folks because I'm curious on how, the whole thing come together now that you have a lot of people who work for you and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where opportunities come from are a bit of a dice roll.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't know, like you were mentioning out in the lobby there, where you meet somebody and then you request that they introduce you to a few people from their network.
Yeah.
And that process is mostly chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what room you're going to end up in. You don't know who you're going to be talking to, and you don't know how they're going to impact your life. But what do you have control over is kind of seeing what those opportunities are and saying, if I want this to produce as much as possible for me or for my career, is how can I make the most of this opportunity that's maybe you stumble into, so because I think career prosperity, there's a fair amount of chance. And then there's a fair amount of what do you do with those opportunities? Do you go to bet on them, or do you I'm going to take this particular thing, give it everything I got, and then that turns into more positive referrals, and then that kind of can steer your game of cause and effect a little bit more positive, I guess.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, one thing when I met with you the first time, I mentioned what the show is about. The show is about, creating opportunities for young professionals to find advice in tools and resources that can help them launch their careers. Meaning, if I'm talking to you as a leader, you are the CEO of a company, what is it that they can use from your story to launch their own career? And so you said that you find the opportunity, you follow it, and then you give it your all. This is something that they can use,
Yep.
right? So sometimes people can give you the opportunity, but some opportunities can happen just by, I don't know, being lucky, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So what would you say that makes your company a little different than others that you or than your competitors?
It's hard to say because I don't. This is most of what I know professionally. You know, I started at I think I was 23 years old. So I worked alongside my uncle and then kind of went out. So I'm maybe a little bit closed off from what the rest of places to work at. I know I can just speak of what's important to me or because there's challenges with the growth, there's the stressors and the things like that, and then you got to have whatever drives you to make you want to keep enduring, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I get a lot of reward from is the people, pulling in people from all their diverse backgrounds. It's like you talk to anybody on this planet and they have a story that's unique to them. And the cool thing about as you're building a team or a company is you can, you bring in all those unique backgrounds and perspectives on the world and put them all together, and it just makes the whole stronger. If you can make space for them to bring the things that are unique to them, rather than I don't make a habit of sitting there saying I know all the right ways to do things or I always have the plan. I think if you can create space for people to show up with the things that are uniquely them and add their creative touch to what you're doing as a company, you get a lot better result. I think if if those young professionals are listening in on this, it would be the quicker they can figure out how to think with their brain, their unique experiences, their unique perspective on the world, and make sure they're working in a place that they can use that. I think it's crippling to some folks if they have like a stern manager that is trying to homogenize a way of thinking. Like, I think this way and I want to march my team in an order by my way of thinking. Then they're kind of going through life thinking with somebody else's brain, and it kind of shorthands them a little bit. Whereas I feel like anybody on this world has something that they do better than most. And figuring out what that is, because I believe everybody's got that thing that even on their worst day, they're going to be better than most at it, and figure out whatever that is. And it's hard to do that if you end up in a place that kind of squanders your creative input to the work that you're doing.
Wonderful. So you mentioned your team. I'm always curious when I'm meeting with folks who hire and fire people. When you're hiring, how many people do you have on your team right now?
A little over 50.
Okay. So what do you look for in a new hire beyond technical skills?
Beyond technical skills, I'm a big energy person of everybody kind of emits their own energy, right? And surround yourself with people that make your day a little bit more positive, maybe incite a little bit more drive and motivation and stuff. So I think if there's one kind of criteria of person that's not going to last super long with us is if you bring down the energy of those around you, if you're kind of a vacuum for positive, you're just a suckhole for positivity. I think people need to be very honest with the fact or the impact that others have on mood, drive, ambition, and just diligently manage your network and people around you to ones that are going to want you to make you want to reach for a little bit more or smile a little bit more, laugh a little bit more. And if you can bring that in, you spend way too much time working to be miserable. And there's going to be stress with work, and there's going to be deadlines and things and like external stuff. But as far as the people that you work with, that needs to be enjoyable, because otherwise you give way too much of your life to be frustrated with one another.
I really like that. And so, is there a way that you can figure this out when the person come? When you are on, when you are interviewing someone to come on the team, or
Through the interviewing thing, I've had, people have given the, how do you find good? I was like, I honestly cannot at this point sit down in an interview and know. There's some where you got a pretty good idea. There's some that are red flags. Don't go there. There's some that you're, pretty sure, but there's a whole lot in the middle that you're like, I don't know, I could go either way on this person. And they show up and they're just standout. And then there's other ones I'm excited about, and then I end up getting the other thing. I don't know. I don't have a good, I don't know. You just try it and make and do your best.
Okay, wonderful. So we're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, we will talk to. There's a question I have been getting from some of the folks who follow the channel, and then I will ask that question when we come back. We'll be right back. We are back today. My guest is the CEO of Grafstrom Construction, and right when we were on break, you were talking a little bit about. You were following up on the question that I asked you earlier about team. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, when you're asking about, whether or not you can spot them in the interview or not, I think it's a dice roll. I won't say that I'm great at predicting it in an interview, or is a resume going to tell you everything. But one thing that's been cool to see play out over the years is that we've gotten kind of tighter and tighter as far as what are the values that we look for in people and how they go about the work, and some of that drive and positive energy we were talking about, as you get kind of more and more of your birds of a feather, if you will. That when you have somebody that doesn't fit that well, if they come in with a kind of opposite attitude, they just stand out like a sore thumb. So it's been cool to see how, as you get more and more dialed on that, and you get somebody that doesn't fit, and they are the one kind of bringing down it just forces you to do something about it, because you will see it start to kind of have a negative impact on those around you. And
okay, so as when I make the post yesterday, on Tuesday, I have two questions. One is from when I was talking to her, from Chris on Facebook. She says to ask you about the courthouse project. What can you tell me about that? Because this fits right into this segment, which is community and impact.
Okay, so the courthouse project, it was a few months ago, the forum did an article.
Okay.
So it was, I can't remember what the title read. It was from defending himself in courtrooms to building them, or something along those lines.
Okay.
So the article in and of itself was, in my early 20s, I was kind of repeat offender, get in trouble, go a little while, get in more trouble. I kept thinking like, oh, well, this is bad. I really dug myself a hole. And instead of getting out, I kept digging it deeper. So that was kind of the first 5 or so years of adulthood, was getting in a whole mess of trouble, and kind of you go through the whole like psychological part of it, of not feeling like you measure up, or prosperity isn't for you, or whatever, and then kind of carry that through adulthood. So then in that process, sobered up, kind of then just went head down, trying to do things that paid for a better future instead of what felt good at the time. And then you do that for 10, 12 years. So it was kind of a cool full circle moment that last fall we won the contract on adding a courtroom to the Cass County Courthouse. So when we went there for a pre-bid walkthrough, one of the guys said, do you get, I don't know if you use PTSD, but something along those lines. Like, is this I said, yeah, it's actually a bit of an emotional process coming through when you're used to being kind of on that side of it.
Yeah.
Sitting in the row, got to go up, talk to the judge to figure out what your fate is in that end, to then walking through on a professional side to be adding another courtroom. It was a cool full circle moment of head down, seek those opportunities, do the things that you need to do each and every day, keep yourself mentally, physically, spiritual, healthy in all the ways that you can be, and then just see how that changes your life over time.
Yeah. So is that, would you say that's one of the proudest moments in your professional life?
Yeah, it was a cool one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, in what other ways does Grafstrom Construction engage in the local community, with the local community?
Outside of meeting with guys like you, helping that, Russ Newman Memorial Fund is a fund done to help kids in athletics. Get gear to kids, help people pursue athletics that might otherwise be difficult.
Okay.
So been active with them, and then just getting out there, meeting people, seeing what their agendas are, helping in whatever way we can.
Yeah, so one thing I'm always curious about when I meet with leaders, especially with people who manage other people or who are leading other people. You can't escape challenges. Whether it's people challenges, whether it's the complexity of the work that you do. So, what has been one of the toughest decisions that you have to make as a leader?
Well, I think it usually comes down to people, right? It's the work is the work. You do doors and hardware. That's like a door has a hard time keeping you up at night. Like I don't lay in bed thinking like, geez, I just can't get this door to latch. It's like, it's mechanical. There's a solution. You find the solution, you go.
I remember when we met, you kind of shared something similar to me. That's why I thought, that was, something that you like to talk about, how you overcome some of these challenges. So.
So that's all mechanical. There's a right or wrong. But the people side is difficult, and there's, firing, say, is a learned ability. Like it never gets less difficult. I think you get more maybe conviction in it when like this just needs to happen, this solution or this situation's not going to improve over time, and you've seen it play out enough times where you need to just you just need to do it, so you maybe get better about doing it, like you're getting into a cold plunge or something. But those are the ones that you can spend the most time thinking about, and it's usually not the polar ends, like when there's for cause of, somebody steals or what, that's categorical, that's easy to decide, but it's kind of the stuff in the middle where you don't know, is this a coaching, training, teaching problem, or is this a person problem that needs to be in making those decisions, because it's never easy to be, in control or oversight over somebody's livelihood and making those decisions, because they'll always be probably the most difficult, is determining who stays or who goes. And
even when they make a mistake,
because there has to be the economic utility to the business, and then there's also you want to see people grow and improve and manage those two things. And it's ideally you could have somebody struggling in some way, and you go and help them, and you work with them, and you aid them, and hopefully they overcome. And then it's extraordinarily difficult if you need to, say, give up on somebody and say, we don't have space in this business now for you because there's ramifications of whatever they might be. But deciding that, like, if you ever get to the point of needing to give up on somebody, and that's just not a professional thing. That's a personal thing. You can have it with family members, whatever. You name the issue. Those are the most difficult times.
Okay, so how do you handle mistakes, and both your own and those of your team?
I love them. I think you can't. We have I would say, a relatively young group of employees, and I think a few well-timed mistakes are just what you need. If you're always making decisions on things that are right in your wheelhouse, you're not really stretching yourself out there for growth. you obviously measure up the impact of the mistake. You know, I'm not going to go try to do open heart surgery with no training. Like that's not you're not measuring the outcome of if that goes wrong, which it inevitably would. But try to give people some space to make those mistakes, be there for them when they do, and say, great, what can we learn from it? And how do we not repeat it? And looking at it that way. You know, back to the doors and hardware thing, I think the biggest limitation for people on learning how to do it well is the confidence to put the first screw in and just tell guys, like, look, worst case scenario, we have to order a new door. And they make more of them. They have all the tooling. They just made all the other ones. Like, yeah, there'll be a financial side of that, but give people space to make those mistakes, and then make sure you learn from them.
So, as a leader, you are leading about 50 people in your company. What is one lesson that you had to learn the hard way? Both, what it can be with people, it can be, on a technical side.
Look, not to keep circling back to people, but the one thing.
It's okay. I mean, if it's people, it's people.
It's people, because they, back to them with the ones that we have now. There's a lot of things I'm not technically good at that the company does, and I'm not required to because of the people. But kind of looking back, that conviction of working through issues. I look back to even 5 years ago or 8 years ago. The issues were smaller, but they were a lot larger to me when they came up, where I would, you would go through a few years of just like hanging on with this inability to act on something and just kind of keep putting it off, but getting better and better of like identifying the issue and moving towards resolution quickly, because that things don't just fix themselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're gonna take another short break here, and when we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. We'll be right back. We are back. Today we are talking to the CEO of Grafstrom Construction, and this segment is about mentorship. And so I want to remind folks who are watching this or will be watching this that Professional Launch is developing a mentoring platform, and right now, between now and August, we are recruiting mentors to get ready to test our mentoring platform for you to connect college students with experienced mentors in the community. So all we ask is go to professionallaunch.org and click on the button that says platform, and then go on there and you can sign up. And we are asking for 1 to 3 hours for the whole semester. So if you are able to afford that, to volunteer to do that, to help others figure out find a path, we would appreciate that very much. Now on to the conversation. Have you had a mentor, or who has been your mentor, and how have they influenced you in some way?
Well, the list is pretty long. So it starts with that. That uncle I started out working for, that was a lot of, how to work and be mindful about the work and what's the next step, and don't walk to the trailer don't ever make a trip empty-handed, just things like that. And then as I've been going through any number of issues, I have maintained a pretty good, call it a council, right? So if you have a issue under a certain particular category, there's somebody that fits that very well. I'd say that there's very, very few situations that I find myself in that I'm not soundboarding with anybody from wife at home, team, people we work for, people we work with, just reach out and get other people's perspectives, because there's a whole lot you don't know or haven't seen that you can pull from others. So I think I don't know that you ever get to the point of not needing somebody to sound stuff out with. Yeah,
I like that. There's a whole lot you haven't seen, you don't know, and you haven't seen. And this is, that falls right into what we're trying to create here with Professional Lunch, with our platform, and even with this show, because when we invite someone like you on the show, what we are trying to do is create that opportunity for somebody to learn something from your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what you just said, it looks like you have quite a few mentors. Well, you may not call them mentors, but people
Mm-hmm.
that you reach out to when you have an issue going on, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really, really good. So now, you've been with this company. You own you are the owner of the company. You found the company. Does Grafstrom Construction invest in training, mentoring, and career growth for its employees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So how, so mentorship is big. That's, in the trades, there's a lot of people that know what they're doing and have difficulty turning it into words or thing like this is, some of the challenges, at least in the trade side of it, is assessing, well, one, keeping track of what it was like when you started day one and you didn't know anything. Like some people forget what that was like. Like I didn't forget it. First task I was set out to do, did it, dead wrong under the assumption that I should know what I was doing from the other side. I don't know. So try to encourage some of the guys that are more seasoned, more experienced, of being like, just stop. And is there a time to explain in a little bit more depth? So that's one thing that the mentor could do. The mentee, again, in the trades, people go into that, like, let's say you're giving me instruction on what to do. And in that conversation, I want this person to think I know what I'm doing. But in that conversation is not what's important. It's when you actually take whatever you're telling me and do it in practice. But if I'm trying to make you think that I know right here, well, this isn't the test. The test is what comes after. So if you need any additional clarity, need them to explain it a different way, that's not going to make you look dumb asking more questions. What will negatively impact their view is when you go out and, perform the thing incorrect because you wanted to go at it with your poker face of, oh, I got it. And then you're just like, geez, I should have listened better. So I think ask questions. It's not a risk to your professional development to ask those dumb questions, I guess. Another thing we do internally is just do 2 reviews a year. They're not, so reviews for us, or at least my view on it, is not to look at the last 6 months and let's talk about let's go hindsight the past here and tell you everywhere you went wrong. It's like the past is the past. Let's learn from it. But this review is for the next 6 months or the next year. Where do you want to go? What are your goals, ambitions? What new roles, new responsibilities do you want in your career? And then build off of what you do natively well and look at areas to improve to get to that, but try to keep it forward thinking. So I like to sit down twice a year with everybody and say, what do you see for yourself? How can we help you get there? Is it tools, training, you name it, and then also give them a chance to provide feedback to how the company operates. Is there anything as a company we could start doing that we're not currently doing, stop doing that you don't think is efficient, and what's something we should keep doing that you really appreciate, so that we can ensure that they're not in some weird corner of the org chart that's not getting communicated too well or kind of getting forgot about, so it allows them an opportunity to speak their mind, because I think the best thing is if everybody can be honest with their opinions, and that provides us a venue to do that. So just try to turn as many things into a conversation and hear them out.
Wonderful. So when you're talking about investing in training for your folks and mentorship and career growth for your employees, I can help but thinking about what we're trying to do with professional lunch, because if it wasn't, I said that many times, I probably say that every show that I have, if it wasn't for other people that invest in me, whether it's by conversation, whether it's telling me how to do things, whether it's giving me advice, I do not think that I would be having the show today, or trying to build something, a resource for young professionals who are launching their careers. And so, just to add to the fact that it's good to invest in training and mentorship, how would you advise someone who is probably in school, or maybe someone who is just starting their careers with a company, how would they go about beginning a mentoring relationship? What would be something that they can do to start that?
I'd say just take your shot. If you find, so one, it's helpful to find somebody you relate with on a way of thinking or a perspective in the world. You know, if you can't tell, I'm fairly emotional based thinking. People, I'm not a big analytics or data person as much as you know, more of those items. So find those people that you find that relatability, the you know, easy to ask those questions and connect with. And I've asked people straight up, just like, let's qualify this I want to, you know, if you're willing, use some of your time for me to just ask you questions as a mentor-mentee relationship. Other times you know, develop friendships or relationships that you're also just like talking back and forth, sharing in the struggle. And I find that a lot of it is you think by speaking or talking to somebody. So it's not always the person on the other side is necessarily giving you the tips. It's you saying it out loud to another person helps you kind of square it up in your mind as well. So just finding people that you can talk to about those items, but you kind of got to get out of your own shell and get out there and meet some people and make yourself available to it. If you're just sit at home and say, geez, I wish I had somebody to call to ask some questions. It's like, what are you doing to find the person? Where are you going out to meet or just engaging in society to find them?
Wonderful. In your bio, I see that, you know, you have a family, you are big on hobbies. So tell me a little bit about you personally, what you do outside of work.
Yeah, outside of work, fairly boring. You know, I'm a pretty,
well, maybe we should go to break.
yeah. I've been, you know, golf is a relatively new hobby. I've been doing a lot of that lately because I'm trying to not be so terrible, but that's kind of something that everybody suffers with. But that's a, you know, enjoyable thing to get outside and then we got 4 kids, so they require you know, a certain amount of time, and so it's go to work, kind of get done with the day's stuff, and then go home, spend time with them, the meal, you know, get them to bed, try to stay pretty diligent with bedtime. You know, bedtime is very very important to me. And try to find those series of things that keep you mentally well and physically well. And for me, consistent bedtime, consistent awake time, eat right, do all those things that you wouldn't dare deviate from with a toddler. You know, you wouldn't want to keep a toddler up 2 hours past their bedtime. You wouldn't want to feed them a bunch of junk food. But then adults just do it as if there's no impact, but it impacts, you know?
Yes, it does. It does. We're going to take a short break here. When we come back, we will talk about, we'll have ask Hans about some of the things that young professionals can do to improve their professional life. We'll be right back. We are back today. We are talking to the CEO of Grafstrom Construction here. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This is the last segment of the show. But before we go into the last final few questions, I want to remind everyone that Professional Launch is a nonprofit organization, and therefore we rely on friends, guests, on partners to keep our operation going, and also to keep developing this mentoring platform for young folks who are in college trying to find a career path. So go on to professionallaunch.org and browse our website to see how you can help. We have many different ways that you can support us. And when you go on there, on the donate page, there are a lot of different ways you can support us. And I want to remind everyone that we are recruiting mentors for this fall. So between now and August, we want to have 150 mentors on our platform to test it, to test the platform to make sure that it's working properly, so that when we make this available to the students can have some choices on mentors. So go on there and check it out, professionallaunch.org, click on the platform button, and then check out our platform. Now, final segment, what pieces of advice that you have received in your journey that has served you well? one, it can be one, or it can be two. Okay.
Yeah, I go to the one I like to use was when the Element Hotel in town was under construction. That was the first, say, commercial project ever went on. So it was at that time I was working for Uncle, was on the residential side, remodeling, things like that, and ended up on the project. And Kyle Newman was on the ownership side building it. And he was the one that requested I go on there. So then he was a very good time and place individual for me, because I was there, didn't know what I was doing, like overwhelmed. It was daunting. It was a big job. Everybody's 100 times smarter than you on there, and you just feel really out of place, like don't belong. So it's like the only thing I can do is show up on this job with lots of effort. I don't have the skills. I don't feel like I have the knowledge, but I can go out here and give it my best shot. So working along with him on that one, he was very good at sitting down and saying, giving the, props as needed. Just like, so I remember one conversation in his office was, I like you. You got fire. Not a lot of people have fire. Do you read? No, not so much. Not since high school. But you should. If you can get to where you can read 100 pages a night, you'll be elite. So I said, you got any book recommendations? And he said, yeah, you should read Atlas Shrugged. So I went and bought it on the iPad, digital form.
Yeah.
So I read it, and it was a very good book, and it just kept going and going and going, and finally got done with it. And it was like, it took me over a month or something of reading at night. In the process, it instilled a reading habit that I kind of wax and wane from. But if there's certain topics that I'm interested in, that's kind of my education method. But it wasn't until, 3-4 years later that I actually saw the physical copy of the book that he had told me to read. And the thing was like 4 inches thick. It's like the audio book is 66 hours long. So this is an incredibly large book. So I laughed about it all those years later, where it was like, give the encouragement, prod me to start reading, and then I'm going to give you the largest book that you'll probably ever read for the first one to start you on the journey. So in hindsight, that was probably, one of the more impactful triggers from somebody.
So again, what advice now that you have gotten that advice and it works for you, based on where you are now, leading dozens of people, what advice would you give to a young professionals who are, he can be in college, can be, maybe just starting a position? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so kind of, piggybacking off of that, it's like you never stop learning, never lose the curiosity for information. When you're in your college years, that's all, you're all education. And then you go through your career, and then you start to get some technical abilities in what you do, and then somewhere in there that confidence steps in, and then you can start getting the I know kind of vibe, where you got it all figured out, and you can kind of start closing off to new information, and you want to always kind of keep that, keep those walls from setting in on your just staying curious. I like the concept of if you think of every time you've sat down and read a book, most of them have provided with a fair amount of impact to your way of thinking, one way or another. If it's a fiction, nonfiction, whatever, they impact your way of thinking. And I can't think of a book that hasn't given me something to take away. And then if I walk through Barnes and Noble and I can see there's thousands of books I haven't read, well, there's a whole lot of stuff I still don't know. So young people never lose that curiosity and that desire to learn more.
Never lose that curiosity and the desire to learn more. Yeah, and this is a good note to end the conversation today, because I don't want anyone to forget this, right? Never lose the curiosity and the desire to learn more. Hans, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your input and sharing part of your journey with us here on the Professional Lunch. So now, I want to remind everyone to check out our platform, check out our website, professionallunch.org, and see how you can support the organization and support our show. Now, this is the part that I tell you. It's up to you to make today a great day. Have a great day.